getting a baby in the family is like having your future mapped out. Your whole plans are at a stop because you want a child, and you want to do after that, you want to plan your life. So I think today I hope my panelists can throw light on how we can resume our practice, how safe it is. Let's take it, I've divided it into different parts, like for the patients, for the doctors, for the embryology lab, for the healthcare workers. So I think we'll really try and cover as much as possible. I would like to invite my panelists, my dear friend Kuldeep Jain from Delhi. Yes, Kuldeep, it's a pleasure to see you. And I
Thank
think
you, Nandita.
he's been practicing IVF for very long, and he's been the president of IFS. He's now fighting for the vice president election of Foxy. So all the best, Kuldeep. Then we have Jayesh Amin from Ahmedabad. Welcome, Jayesh. I think it's a pleasure. I've heard a lot about all your success rates and how efficiently you run the unit. So I'm looking forward to listening from you today.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have Swati Dongre from Kadam. So Swati, welcome, and we would like some nice young fresh blood to tell us. There is Kaushal Kadam. Yeah, hi Kaushal. Kaushal is from Mumbai, and she's running an IVF center very successfully. So welcome, Kaushal. And there is Akta Bajaj.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Dr. Nandita.
I'm glad to have you, and I'm really happy to have everybody over here. I would like to really ask my panelists to let us now talk about how to get back to practice. So, can start senior person. Kuldeep, I think you're the senior most over here. With most of the country now in an unlock phase, do you safe to restart or resume ART services?
Yeah, I think this question we have been trying to answer for last 2 months. And that was the time, because we were getting a lot of calls from our members as well as from patients that what is the situation? Can we start the practice? If we have to start the practice, then how safe it is? So these were all questions which were taken into account. And we are having 3 major societies in India, like Indian Fertility Society, ISAR, and ACE, that is the Academy of Clinical Embryologists. So we thought we should work out whether it is safe to start the practice, ART services in country, because that was the time when we were just thinking that after some time this will go, the peak will come, and the situation will be normalized. But during that discussion, we came to the fact that it is not going to be normalized very soon. And at the same time, in the other societies also, like European Society and ASRM and International Federation, they were also discussing whether the ART services can be opened safely. And everyone thought that because the situation is not going to change very soon, so it is better that we change our practices and start ART services with all precautions. So that was the consensus all over world. And in our task force also, we considered a lot of questions whether we can start all ART services, or we have to restrict to some of the services which are in emergency. But if you remember, last month, even there was a statement from WHO, SRA and SRM, combined statement, that infertility services to be taken as emergency services, because there are a lot of facts which we need to consider, like there are patients who are going for the cancer treatment, there are patients who are going for having very poor reserve, they are having only 1 month, 2 months to be used for IVF. So it was decided that ART services can be opened, but with lot of precautions, lot of restrictions, and keeping in mind the local situation. So we cannot generalize when we are having a trend. When you are sitting in the red zone, whole city is in red zone, then you have to take local conditions into the fact and then decide. So yes, ART services can be opened, and we decided last month, and since then we have been practicing with all precautions. We formulated guidelines. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
as far as the ART services can
You
be opened,
can be open.
yes, so I
But
think they can be open,
yeah,
keeping in lot of things mind,
yeah.
the local
To
local
discuss,
situation
Kuldeep,
and the safety. Yeah,
as we discuss. So right now you have given a green signal to everybody to start the IVF practice, right?
yeah.
Okay. So have we initiated, has any of you all initiated new treatments? Jayesh, would you like to talk about it?
Ultimately, that I think so. We all people are always following the guidelines, which is already Dr. Kuldeep Jain and Dr. Nandita Palshetkar said that IFS, CSAR, and everybody association who published 2 months back that how to practice. And initially, when COVID, especially in Gujarat, a lot of cases, especially my Ahmedabad is having a higher number of the cases with high mortality rate is also there. Where in the month of May month that we started, because of this pandemic curve is on the peak, we think about it. So my message is like that: whatever the area where you are practicing, if your pandemic curve is in the peak and the more number of the patient involved in that condition, I think so you should restrict your practice up to freeze embryo transfer only. But observing that after that freeze embryo transfer, we observed that this curve is not ending and it is distributing in different and different area. And at the end of the day, from May 15, that we decided to start ovarian stimulations. So let me share you something about from May 15 to this is again the completion of the July, and almost we enroll every month around 25 to 30 patients for the ovarian stimulations.
Yeah.
We never started about the donor egg cycle because of the guideline or issue also, and we never know the sources and the litigations, or the we might trapped in the certain donor egg problems like that. Because of that, we started initiate second part, we started stimulations. And I'm just sharing my something views of, because it is now almost 3 months and we already have a COVID-19 test approval from the government here very easily from the private lab, and the cost is also reducing. So I'm sharing my 100 patient in this 3 months we stimulated, where I make the priority, yes, that those patients are prone to have hyperstimulations like that, and younger group of the patients I explained, and regarding the COVID-19 era, then postponement of their stimulations in the later month. But another group of the patients, I said something out of 100 patients, we started all the guidelines which is issued by the ISAR, IFS, and also the international guidelines, where we are doing 2 times COVID when starting of the treatment also, and before the SCG also. And we said something out of this 100 patient, only 2 patients, even my curve is on that time in different area is having a higher. We have a 2 patient, those who are COVID positive, and we postpone the treatment. We are counseling the patient before the starting the treatment. Previously, being a consultant and clinician, we sometimes we are worried about that what will be going to happen on table if there is some hypoxia, what are the COVID morbidity problems like that. But now looking to the comfort, the experience that if you have a 2 COVID-19 negative and asymptomatic patients, those who are not having any symptoms until the isolation process of the all the stimulation occurs, I think so it is comfortable to start the stimulation. That is what my message, because we already completed around in these 3 months around 25 30 every month, so 100 stimulation already over. But where we are not putting, and the patient those who are very younger group, chances, though we know that the chances of overstimulation, hyperstimulation is preventable, still we are making them that okay, we can wait for 1 or 2 months and let us see the output of the disease, and we can start in later 1 or 2 months. So apart from that, we started the pour over in reserve, we started FET process, And let me tell you, I'm just sharing everything because let me tell you, last 15 days when we started just some numbers of the 5 to 7 numbers of the donor cycle also, to just put on the that what is the experience. And then we can say something very dramatically, that whatever the 10 patients we stimulated, no patient is still COVID positive in donors, rather than we have a 2 patients positive in the patient profile also. So this is what at present scenario I can say from Gujarat, Ahmedabad, that even though disease are spreading regularly from area to area, curve is changing from area to area. You never know. You have to keep the watch. If the one area, those containment area, then we are restricting and we are saying that not to go by stimulations and every procedure. But by that I can say, give a message that we started stimulation and FET process, and we are doing freeze all policy for the all the stimulated cycle at present.
Uh, Jayesh,
Yes, sir.
I think we have discussed lot of things during our recommendation, when we were making the recommendation.
Yes.
And there were almost 15 minds which were working together. Okay.
Right.
And we tried to see, if we start all cycles, what will happen? If we start third party reproduction, what will happen? What are the risks? And everybody was of the opinion that for now we should restrict it to the patient only. Third party reproduction should not be practiced, because we do not know, and we may open a basically Pandora box.
Yeah.
If we start using, because we have to follow some guidelines, so we are able to help our patient. Like,
I totally agreed, sir. It is only for 5 to 7 patients, that let us see how what is happened. But
No,
all
Kuldeep,
COVID negative.
I think we need to change our mindset. As Jayesh said, there are a lot of patients who require treatment. And I think if you are very comfortable doing your patients, I think you should be comfortable doing the donors also, as long as we take proper precautions. The only question that I have in my mind is, do I quarantine my donors for 15 days before starting the stimulation? So then I'm aware that there's no asymptomatic. But now there is also antibody testing in Bombay available. Anybody is doing it now?
Yes.
Kaushal, you want to add something?
Yes. Because even we have not started doing donor cycles, but one of the most recent ASRM guidelines that has come out, that has said that yes, ART treatment should be considered as an emergency and should be offered to patients. And in fact, the donors, if they are absolutely asymptomatic, and if you have taken a proper history and they have confirmed that they have not been in contact with any COVID positive patient, or they do not have anybody within their family who's turned COVID positive, then it is all right to begin the treatment. Also, what we can do is we can restrict the number of visits to the hospital. We can do one test before starting the stimulation.
Kaushal, that we're coming a little later.
Okay.
We are covering it.
Right.
So the next part is of consents, which I want to ask all. Are you all taking any special consents?
So Dr. Nandita, I still feel, because keeping the scenario of egg donor program in our country, it is really difficult to quarantine. It is really difficult to trace a donor, where this donor is going and coming from where. So until unless you are having, because see, you can tell your patient, because the patient will be more concerned about her health. As far as the donor is concerned, until unless a proper system is in place, I still feel we should restrict initiating the donor program. If you are having a in-house agency, like the agency is reliable, you can trace the donor whereabouts. It may be little early to start the donor and third party reproduction at present scenario, because it's still it is rising. There are a lot of services are opening up, so we are expecting a second wave also. So I think this is a little premature to go for third-party reproduction. We should wait for some more time till the plateau comes and we are able to monitor our donors. It is really difficult. I don't know about maybe in some
Can I play the devil's advocate?
Yes.
Can I play the
Yes.
devil's advocate here?
Yeah.
I think the donors also require money. You see, everybody is in a financial crunch. So everybody is wanting to go back to work, but at the same time is scared of getting infected. Not only us, not only the patients, but even the donors. So they are also maintaining. It's not very easy to get donors also. So I feel if you can maintain the same strict protocol, if you're using it with patients, I personally feel I've not started yet, okay, Kuldeep, but I feel that taking the right precautions, taking everything, you probably will be able to. Anyway, let's set this. At the moment, all our associations are saying don't do any third party, but there are people doing it, and I think if you, the whole world associations are saying if you do it with safety, you can probably look at it. Swati, I want to know about what any different consents are you taking during this time?
Yes, we are taking different type of consents. We are counseling the patient regarding COVID-19, what are the symptoms and what would be the risk-like things. And then we are just prioritizing the patients and we are asking the patient themselves only couple ki whether you are willing to go ahead, then you can just signature, when you do the sign on this form and then we can enroll you in a cycle.
Okay, all right. So, we are going to talk about the embryology next because I want to also talk about the patients and all a little later. So, embryology, I don't know which one of you, this is a question I open it to my panelists. What are the safe practices to be observed in the lab by the embryologist?
Yeah. Can I take?
Yeah, please, Kuldeep.
Yeah. I think as far as the environment and the contamination part is concerned, lab is the most safe part. Yes. That is what we consider. That this is the part which we always take all precautions. So as far as the extra precautions are concerned, not much change is required. Only few practices need to be revamped. SOPs has to be there for each and everything, and usually they are there, but they need to be adhered little more. Okay. Second thing, because the material which is coming from outside, like semen is coming in your lab, so that may be the change in your practice, that you have to take extra precautions at that point of time. Whatever is coming in your lab should be considered infectious, and whether it is raw material, whether it is semen sample, or even your files, okay, because the files are coming from OPD, and so that practices need to be changed. No papers from outside should come very easily in your lab. That practice
electronic data.
Yes.
That's what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. So, and then again, the semen container needs to be basically, when we are giving semen container, it is already sterilized. But when you are getting back, that is the point where you can get the infection into the lab. So it is not only semen, even from the container it can come. So that you have to take precautions. Otherwise, inside practice need not to be changed much.
I think the main thing is your embryologist, because he's the one or she's the one who can get the COVID into the lab. Otherwise, beautiful paper in July 2020 which says the eggs, the sperms, and the embryos are pretty clean. They are not associated with COVID infection. So what about visiting embryologists? What precautions have you all taken? Because all of us are visiting people to come do see, etc. So can you tell me what precautions you all are taking?
We do have everything in-house.
Okay, now I'm talking about visiting embryologists. Anybody here, others I'll talk. Jayesh, you also have an in-house embryologist?
We have in-house, yes, madam.
And what about you, Kaushal?
No, we have in-house embryologists. But again, I think if you have any visiting embryologists coming in, then what is most important is to understand and ask for the history or exposure,
The triage
and
question.
Triaging, yes.
which is most important. So if you know that, okay, that embryologist does not have any exposure and he is fine, but still I would like to take my due precaution, provide the PPE to the embryologist and only then allow the embryologist inside.
No mouth pipetting. I think some of the things that are required is maybe an air handling unit in your lab, so that the air is cycled every 15 to 20,
Correct.
10 minutes at least.
Yes.
And you do no mouth
And-
pipetting. Use all your
Yes,
Epidemic,
we do not allow mouth pipetting.
absolutely. And I think if your embryologist wears a mask and a face shield and maintains hygiene, though we cannot ask them to sanitize their hands all the time. Using the embryo safe sanitizer will become very expensive for the lab. So I think plain washing with soap and water, these are the simple things. And I think visiting embryologists need to restrict to 2 or 3 centers. That is what we need to do. As it is, they cannot travel. So they should restrict to 2 or 3 centers and go only to those centers. And the triaging history which Kuldeep and all of us through ISAR, IFS have put in, that this is the triage form which you should answer. I think your staff should answer it every day, and that would really take care of a lot. Do you think your staff should be tested?
I think so.
Akta, if you want to add, you please add to it. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think we are very apprehensive when patient comes in, and the same applies to the patient. Maybe they are also apprehensive that my doctor is COVID positive, negative. What is her COVID status, But I think testing should be based on symptoms only. And when some staff develops symptoms, or maybe he or she comes in contact with COVID positive person, and testing should be done then and there only. Otherwise, routinely, I don't think testing is important.
Yeah, universal testing is not possible also, and not recommended also.
Expensive also, no, for the unit. How often will you test your people?
Yeah, so that's why it is not recommended by any of the societies, any of the forum. What is recommended is regular triaging. That is very, very important. And starting from the lower staff to the director of because if you are not testing yourself, the people will not take it seriously. So I think your day should start with the triaging, with measuring the PO2 and temperature and other things. So you start from yourself, and then the people will follow. Otherwise, the system will break. So that is what is recommended and is required for your staff.
What about PPEs? Do you think your staff should be in PPE?
No, previously, previously, madam, we started practice with the PPE kit when the curve, we are feeling about that curve is really, because everybody is panic and people are also interested.
So much. We didn't have information.
Yes. So we don't have information. People are also so panicked that also informing me, why doctor your staff is not with PPE kit, they are also panicked. So previously we started with the PPE kit, and I think so for at least 1.5 months, even my receptions and everywhere we started with the limited staff, only 25% staff with PPE kit, with entry level. We are measuring all the temperature and everything. But let me tell you that after this 1.5 months, that is practically what we go now. That what we are doing. I'm just doing. That is what I'm saying on the screen. That at present we are feeling that by experience that we are now moving to not to use PPE kit by our staff and everything. We think so about changing the mask. I think so wearing the gloves also sometimes it is not that much of comfortable, but we are, because patients are so conscious and patients are wearing gloves and everything, they are used to say that your staff are also used to wear the gloves. So we are continuing with the mask and gloves with the lot of ability of the sanitizers. And I think so the already all the panelists says that
face shield.
Yes, we are
using
compulsory face shield from reception to whatever the doctors also are
so
those who are examining and counseling the patient.
Have a PPE during the pickup?
In pickup we are not using previously I started with PPE to all my staff and everything, Then we did it around 1 month. Then we are now on the COVID-19 test, all 2 times negative, and all the tries are negative. So
Then
we
you
all
don't
are
do
now
it.
with mask and only our disposable gown system that we are using previously, with the same material disposable gown. So it will be slight cheaper also. And also we are having a protections with, we know that all the patients are, I know that COVID-19 positive negative, it doesn't mean that it is negative. Still we are taking all precautions, but now we are coming to the gown and disposable gowns, and we are disposed it rather than to use PPE. So at present I think so mask, still, and the disposable gowns, that what our routine in our whole hospital by treating the IVF patients.
Swati, what is the timing you keep between two appointments when you consult patients?
Actually, I do have 3
Hello.
consulting rooms in my setup. So what we are doing is like one by one, 3 patients, and minimum it's like in waiting area, not more than 4 couples at a time.
Oh wow, that's a big area.
So it's like half an hour that gets over, and then the other one comes in. So we are texting also to the patient for the appointments, and we are giving slots to them, and according to that they are coming actually.
Yeah, in Bombay, if our patients come a little early, they're made to sit in the car. You sit in the car.
Yeah,
don't
better
come
they
out
sit in
yet.
the car.
So I
Yes.
think these are, so at least I think 20 minutes between two patients should be a good time. Okay, the other thing
I
that
would like to add something.
yeah, please.
Yeah, Dr. Nandita. So, in fact, what we have done in our practice, we have divided ourselves into 2 teams. So, I have one set of team, with a nurse, an embryologist, and a doctor who comes in, and
Yeah.
they are working for 1 week, and then we work in rota. So that's one thing. The other is we inform our patients that only the female patient will be allowed inside. The male partner should be sitting in the car. So we are restricting the number of people entering the clinic. Also, we use the sanitizer spray. All our staff change into scrubs as soon as they enter into the clinic. And they're all wearing mask and a face shield. So then gloves, we just use and recommend to wash hands frequently. So we avoid wearing gloves for all of them. And PPE is restricted just to the use within the operation theater. Again, not absolutely mandatory. We have our 20-minute procedure for the egg retrieval, but for the comfort of the patient as well as of the other staff, we prefer using the PPE.
Can I ask a out of the blue question? Is COVID-19 notifiable?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So whom do you notify it to? The patient
The
who's
BM.
positive.
DM
BMC.
or CMO, yeah, appropriate
Yes, we
authority.
need to notify.
The appropriate ward.
The
So
ward.
please,
Yeah.
I think everybody should know that. Yeah, Kuldeep, you wanted to
Dr.
say?
Nandita, actually, I wanted to say about the husband or male partner. See, we need to consider actually what we are, how we are deciding, how our patients are deciding. Do you think the patient will be able to decide the course of action?
I don't
It is
agree
very
with
difficult.
that.
It is very
I don't agree
difficult.
with Kaushal,
It is
yeah.
very difficult to. It is very
No,
difficult to
the thing
practice.
is, we do not.
We recommended in our guidelines, but when you put into practice,
No, but
it
husband
is,
and wife should.
and yes,
Husband is always
so
No,
counseling.
what I meant,
We talk
Dr.
of
Nandita.
counseling. Yeah, we talk of
Sorry.
counseling.
Only about sonographies.
No,
I think.
what, just for the sonographies, we do not. But of course, when the patient is coming
But,
or when
listen, I
a
think
particular
sonography-
treatment needs to be decided,
You're
Yes.
testing your
then we call
husbands
the couple.
also, right? All of you all are testing the husbands also.
Yes.
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 You're
Men
collecting the
should be
sample.
tested.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's go on to this. Let's go to the procedures now. During oocyte retrieval, what anesthesia, general anesthesia, no. So much of information about COVID came out. But now we've realized and we've taken precautions. So what is the anesthesia all of you all are using for pickup?
We are using propofol infusion.
And it's absolutely safe. Anybody doing it under local?
No.
No. Propofol
Thank
infusion.
God. I
Propofol
mean,
infusion.
be a woman and can you imagine you have 15 eggs and you're going on and getting the needle. So I think propofol anesthesia is safe and should not be a problem. Are your patients masked during the pickup?
Yes.
Yes.
Every
Yes.
patient.
Every patient is masked during the pickup. And my anesthetist who is doing it's like he has put one aerosol chamber
Okay.
in front of the patient, and he's doing all his activities, whatever maybe the umbo and all, through the small hole which are there to the aerosol chamber, and he's putting it. And one sister is always with him, so that he says that this kind of procedure won't expose too much of microorganisms or viruses outside the aerosol. And every time we are cleaning that aerosol chamber, we are keeping it out.
We are practically
Yeah.
what just practically what we are doing, because if you have a number of pickups and everything, that chamber is again and again is every time you cannot dispose that chamber or clean the chamber. So practically what we are doing, we have some ETO sheets of plastic sheets are there. You can have some ETO sheets that you can just after the propofol and whatever the oxygen you are giving, above that you can have a folded that plastic sheet, so that will be prevent each and every patient you can throw that sheet, dispose, and it will be cheaper also. That is what at present we are doing.
Yeah, but the carbon footprint, we have really helped by reducing the traffic, but the amount of PPEs that we are burning, we are disposing. So that's why it's very important to take a very responsible attitude towards PPE, not use it unnecessarily. Okay, the other question that I wanted to ask was batch IVF. When you just do 15 patients in a day. I mean, I have done it. So what is your take on that? I think that's a very valid question.
We are not doing batch IVF.
I'll tell you what we've done.
I think so. Everybody here are at present not doing batch. At present,
not at present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not.
Kuldeep, anything you want to add?
No, actually, what is the recommendation? I can tell you the recommendation, and then everybody can decide on their practice. The recommendation is you have to stagger your cases. You have to you cannot do one case, then second case, and third case. So at least half an hour is required between the two cases. That was the recommendation.
Yeah.
So maybe if you are having a very busy schedule, then you have to do minimal cases, maximum spacing, and that is how you can prevent. So that is the fundamental thing which you have to keep in mind, whether it is your routine practice or your batch IVF. In batch IVF, you cannot do 15 cases at present.
Not more than 5 or 6 cases.
Not more than 5 cases. Yeah. So not more than 5. That is okay. Whether it is batch IVF or your routine practice, keep the maximum distance between the two procedures. That is what is recommendation.
And find your local embryologists who will do everything for you. The AC and everything. I think with batch, that is going to be a real problem, because a lot of embryologists travel into the smaller cities in our country, But of course, the number of patients have also reduced because they also are fearful of doing it for you. Okay. Then third-party reproduction we've already discussed. Question, Jayesh, since you're doing donors, if the donor comes positive, who will bear the cost?
No, madam, what I'm saying that we started only 5-6 cases, but yes, I little bit open. You are also on that positive that someday and somebody has to open all these things. It is a long way to go. You cannot restrict everything. Yes, you can slowly and gradually.
I'm not saying don't start
it.
Yes, I'm saying
yes, I
understand. Positive.
And
who will bear the cost of a treatment?
See, at present, what we are doing we explain and counsel the patient regarding most of the patient. We increase around 2,500 cost to my old donor cycles, right? So, and we are explaining and counseling the patient that regarding first the test. Now, I understand if it is positive. At present, if it is positive, and I understand if it is positive, and if there is a COVID positive, then at the time of the starting of treatment is COVID positive. I don't think so. Then it is where you can just, because you not started any treatment. I'm saying that before starting treatment, if it is positive, try to cancel it, right? And we can also offer some treatment for maybe isolations. Maybe at present we don't have any donor, 5-6 donor, no positive donor are there. but we can isolate the donor and we can bear the cost. We can also help them in AMC, means our municipal corporation quota. We have a we can isolate them and we can get availability of the treatment.
Basically, during the treatment, what you're saying and what I think everybody, all of us will agree, is our responsibility.
It's our
So
responsibility.
Right.
what Kuldeep was
Absolutely.
talking about, don't start the donors because we are responsible for them. We will have to take full this. Okay, the other now let's shift to the patient. The patient concerns. I think Akta, you can come in here. The patient will ask you. I'm scared. Will I contract COVID during pregnancy? Will the COVID affect my child? Will the pregnancy, make me more vulnerable to COVID? So what do you think? How do you counsel your patients?
Yeah, I think, ma'am, COVID is trying to go for a long, and we cannot tell our patient that you should not go for pregnancy. They definitely have to conceive because there is a lot of social pressure. And if she conceives, I think she is equally at risk as any other person in general population. But definitely in pregnancy, there are some limitations. We can use only restricted drugs. We cannot use drugs very liberally in case she contracts the infection. But I don't think so. There are more chances when she is pregnant. She is equally prone as any other person, and she should go for her pregnancy. Yeah.
Dr. Nandita,
Kuldeep, you want to add?
Yeah. I just wanted to add two things. Whether it is a financial matter or whether it is a medical matter, in today's scenario, the counseling has to be really informed counseling.
Yeah.
Whatever information we are having from all over world, we can provide to them, and that really help in deciding. Okay, when you can say that this is the scenario at present, there is no increased risk, and you give the literature to them, ask them to search themselves, they are very comfortable. As far as the financial matter is concerned, the cancellation is a real issue. If you have already started the cycle and before pickup, the patient becomes corona positive, that has to be going into the consent. That cycle will be cancelled.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the cancellation, who will bear the cost? I don't think the center can bear the cost. So it has to be passed on to the patient only. Only thing, this has to be told before you start the procedure. That is very important. So patients should understand the cost implication also before you start the cycle. So that is very important.
Any of you discuss to the patient if it gets cancelled? Like I had a patient who developed, COVID just before we gave her the trigger, so we cancelled the cycle. So we did offer a discount because
Yeah, that is okay. That is okay.
But I think that is something that we can do on our side because.
See, I want to add, madam. I want to add something about that. Whatever the number of the patients are, a lot of restrictions already. We can say it's a self lockdown in the infertility patients. So it is not like that you are getting more number of the patient. That is first point that what we observe.
I agree with you.
Second, those who are coming to your platform, they are very much eager to start the cycle. They have a make a mind. They already go through the Googles and everything. They know that what are the disadvantage and advantage. So I think so. We don't have practically. We are counseling. We are taking the consent. Everything we have to do. But then we are doing everything. But they are still ready for. Ultimately, they are saying that you explain everything, but we are here to ready to start the cycle. That is what I am saying. Practically. Means practically they are coming to your platform by understanding all the COVID pandemic. They said that we waited for 3 months, sir.
Jayesh, the important thing on this platform is to tell people that women are not at a higher risk. They have the same risk profile. If the woman conceives and she's pregnant and she gets COVID, the baby is not shown to be affected to all the studies that are known so far. So we do not have, very early data. We have data about women who are infected in the second trimester now. But so far, whatever studies have shown, there is no infection of the placenta and all those things. So I think that is the reassurance you need to give your patients. And you need to tell them that it's an evolving disease. As more research comes in, we'll know more. but thousands of babies have been born, and even 40 babies in one of the studies in India, out of 1,300 patients, 40 babies were positive, and the babies had absolutely no problem with the disease. So I think this is the reassurance that we need to give our patients. Okay, now let's come to, I wanted to ask one more important question. Is any prophylaxis recommended during pregnancy? Like HCQ and all, would you give a patient, a pregnant patient? So I think, I mean, what I'm doing in practice is that unless she's a healthcare worker or she's a doctor, we don't recommend. But even my doctors, I'm not giving unless she's working in the COVID ward. So I think if you're not working in the COVID ward or that kind of a thing, there's no prophylaxis. Okay, regarding patient follow-up, how often do you perform scans? Now, this was the important, we were coming to the process. So normally we call them 5-6 times to our clinic. So there was a patient who was coming every day for injections to my clinic, and on the 4th day she turned positive. So what do you do? Now your patient has come to the clinic to collect injections and she has turned positive. Would you quarantine your hospital? Would you quarantine your staff? What is it that would you do? What are the steps that person should take if such an incident happens?
Madam, practically for the visit, what we are doing at present, that if practically what happened that if you have a self injection, patient can take the injection selfly. That is the one way that
so that's
I think
one thing. That's
one thing.
Fair. So you
right?
try and give injections which can be administered by the patient themselves. Then
Patient. So that is a second thing is that what we observed that taking injection in a small doctors and very small nursing home, that they are very scared. So they said something, suppose my nursing home, we have a separate area and everything is checked and we are making a social distance. So I am explaining that if you are feeling that you are much more safer and your distance is very near to my clinic, then second, we are offering them to come a distant time that you can have a 2-hourly separate time over in the morning part from 8 to 1 o'clock. The people can come to take the injection. That is what we are taking in the second part. And third thing, that those who are at home because they cannot come here, I advise them that you just take care to take a one nurse who is she something, or one nurse or one doctor who is she asymptomatic, and you can take, and you're every day you can ask the questions and you can go by the injection.
How many scans are you doing?
We are doing the scan about what, madam, that we cannot restrict, practically we cannot restrict all the scan in IVF, but I can say something about we are doing around 4 scans.
4 scans. What about Swati?
4 scans, ma'am.
Okay.
Day 1 of stimulation.
Are you doing it yourself?
What?
Are the scans being done at your clinic?
We scan at present in my center. We are doing scan by myself. So every time it is myself.
So this way we were doing the COVID test only before the trigger.
Yeah.
So this patient
no, ma'am.
Came for
we are doing trigger at the time of starting also.
I know. So it's good to do a COVID before and after. But initially when COVID was not available, it was available only pre-op. We were doing it before the trigger and this patient turned positive. My question was, the patient has come to your clinic, he's come positive. And you have done her sonography, your nurse has given an injection. Would you quarantine your place? That's what I want to know. Yes or no?
I have experience, madam. I have experience of 2 patients. Can I share?
Yeah, quick, but because
so one patient who she come at second day morning, and then I do sonography. My staff also PPE kit is there because I am always the insertion of the sonography probe by my one staff, who is she wearing PPE kit constantly and changing a day. That is what my strict advice. But then again, we have that patient become COVID positive, asymptomatic. So what we had done, the patient, which was the staff which was given the injection, I make her that 3 days watching and at home. And if there is no symptom, then we can call back after 3 days. That is what.
3 days is of no use.
So I understand, madam, but
not do it.
I understand practically what I am telling, that nobody can say something about 15 days.
What is, Dr. Kuldeep, can you tell us what the government has advised now?
See, the advice is if in your clinic anybody turns positive, okay, the center should be closed for 48 hours. and then you can start. You have to triage, you have to do the testing of all staff who were exposed, and as we were discussing, you should have two teams. Okay, so in that scenario, if you are having a pickup during that time, you should have a backup somewhere nearby, and that is the recommendation, that before starting your ART services, you should have a tie-up with someone, that in case your center is quarantined or closed for 2 days or 3 days, the cycle should not go waste. So that is one.
Yeah, Kuldeep,
Yeah.
I think there are different instructions in different places. In Maharashtra, what we've been told is that if the person is positive and you've taken him into the hospital or OT, 24 hours quarantine, it should be clean with sodium hypochlorite.
Yeah, 48 hours. Here it is 48 hours.
And if the person who's exposed to him is wearing a PPE, then you need not worry. Unless she has symptoms, you don't isolate also the patient.
But
So
testing is recommended. Testing is recommended. Testing is recommended.
No,
testing of all staff.
Testing
is recommended whenever some symptoms gets developed.
Patient becomes symptomatic, then we do the
then
test.
we do the
Absolutely.
testing.
These are the instructions in Maharashtra that we have for the Maharashtra. Yeah, Jayesh?
Yes, yeah, I think so. That what is your experience to all the panelists, that if you are having suppose COVID positive, whether it is antenatal or infertility, so during this 3 months, if you're any staff who's wearing the mask and face shields and given the injections, are you feeling that within 15 days that how many percentage of your staff become positive? Let me tell you, just I'm asking one question. How many percentage of staff are exposed to a COVID positive patients, right? And they turn to positive symptomatic within a 15 days.
Not
less
really.
likely, as we are getting many asymptomatic patients also with the COVID positive.
So,
no,
you know, Kuldeep,
whatever the asymptomatic COVID positive, your staff has given injections or something, like you visited a 6 feet again. So how many people in your clinic, those who become positive within 15 days? Because everybody started 2 months.
Unless and until we do the testing, then only we would come to know. We have not done testing.
But symptomatic, how many people become symptomatic? Suppose one people can be symptomatic. I think so. There is one symptoms. We cannot say everybody is asymptomatic. Some symptoms will be there. If you have 15, 16 staffs, then maybe possible one patient do have some symptoms. So do you have a one staff that is having the symptomatic?
But what we are doing is like,
then we
have divided the staff also into mini batches.
She said, Jay,
they are not doing work.
Let's come to a consensus here. I think the team is important. Another thing that I would like to say practically, what we've done is when we got this problem of this patient turning positive, we have completely outsourced the stimulation and the sonography. My IVF center doesn't have to be shut, like how Kuldeep says, you know, everything is done, and before the patient is taken into the center, she's tested for COVID, both husband and wife. So that is something that we can do, and all the sonologists are taking utmost care, you know, changing bed sheets, sterilizing. We feel we are, of course, great at doing sonography. इधर उधर थोड़ा एक दो follicles इधर उधर हो सकता है, but I think more or less we can do it. Yeah, Kaushal.
Okay. Dr. Nandita, could I ask, or could I say something?
Yeah.
What we have done is, for our IVF patients, I have restricted the number of scans to just 3 scans. So I do the scan on the second day. The second scan is done around 5-6th day. And the third scan is by the 9th day. After that, the patient is ready for the egg retrieval. And what we have done is, we do the IVF scans ourselves. But for IUI, and wherever patients are staying a little further away from the clinic, we ask them to get the scans done with the sonologist and only then come just for the IUI to the clinic. So this is what we have done.
Fair enough. I think all of us are using our own ways in which to do it. What about telemedicine? I think telemedicine has become a very, very integral part. How are you all using it in your practice? Akta, you want to talk about telemedicine?
Yeah, Dr. Nandita, thanks for the question. I think scenario is changing every day, and earlier what I have observed, people were not ready, they were not comfortable with telemedicine, but now I have seen there is a lot of change, mindset is changing. People like to consult from comfort of their home, and they are very, very comfortable, and I think it is really good telemedicine we should practice more and more, because we are safe, our patients are safe. Basically, we have to save ourselves, our staff, our patients, and it saves, patient doesn't have to commute and very less exposure,
What are the important points all of us must remember in telemedicine? 1, 2, 3, 4. Can somebody tell me?
Keeping a record is always essential.
Yes.
We can take help of this Practo software or some tele experts with which all our data should get concise with us, so that we would also come to know what we are doing.
Yeah. Secondly is consent. I think consent is very important. And the Medical Council of India and the Niti Aayog has actually agreed that it should be allowed during the COVID era and all. And I think not only is it, it's time saving also, no? And for us also, we can consult at any time. I think it's wonderful. Anybody wants to add anything? Yeah, I think it's become a very, very important tool now, telemedicine.
Only thing in telemedicine, the medical legal issue, so that you have to keep in mind. Whatever you are telling or whatever you are prescribing, that should be documented. Okay,
yeah.
Whether in the form of record or in the form of some software. So I think that is very important. Otherwise, because in one of the panel, that was the only issue which actually needs to be observed. Whenever you are advising, you have to be little more cautious in your advice.
And emergency, no emergency.
Yes. So no emergency should be, no emergency drugs should be advised. No, if the patient is telling that she is having pain, severe pain, it is better you ask her to go to nearby hospital, or if she can come to you.
Exactly.
So don't entertain any emergencies on phone or video calling. Yeah, that is important.
That's what another question which I had was, now we are making it very COVID friendly, COVID free, etc., etc. Okay, now patient rings you up and she says, I've got bleeding after.
So
what do you do? How do you advise such a patient?
Sorry, could you come up with the question again?
Sorry, I think my internet is again acting funny. No, if the patient is pregnant, she's positive, and then she has bleeding PV. So how do you handle that?
Okay, can I take that?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I would ask the patient that is the bleeding continuous, or is it just a little spotting? So I would, of course, talk to her maybe on Skype or just on call. And once that is done, I would ask her to take complete bed rest. If she has been on aspirin or low molecular weight heparin, we ask her to stop that. And once 24 hours are done, I would recommend her to go to the sonologist, get a sonography done, so that then I can guide her further.
Okay, thank you. This is just offhand, I thought of this question, is that once your patient is, would you use PRP, platelet-rich plasma, for thin endometriums?
Yes.
You
I'm
would?
using.
Even in COVID times?
No,
in COVID times, no.
No.
We are not
COVID times, I'm asking.
Okay,
because if she tests positive, there could be a viremia. So I think it's avoidable to use any blood products.
At present, we are not doing. I think so. We are using in previously with the thin endometrium.
No, that's okay. Yeah, previously everybody was using it. What about GCSF and all? Are you using it now? At the moment, are you using adjuvants in IVF? Like GCSF, intralipids, etc.?
No.
You're doing a pure IVF cycle. And how many of your patients, while waiting for these 2-3 months, have conceived? Naturally. I think all of us have.
Yes.
Yeah. Not many, but yes, But once in a while, yes.
There have been quite a few.
5% or less than 5, 1 to 2% probably conceived. But I've seen a lot of abortions also.
No, not 5%, not 5%. It is less than 1%. Yeah, it is less than 1%.
Okay, then I have now delivery concerns. Can I come to Akta?
Yeah, sure.
Should we, now if this person is fully pregnant, should we test her close to the EDD? Is it
Yeah, I am. Yeah, Dr. Nandita, I am testing, at least I am advising all my patients for COVID test. And in Delhi, there are 84 centers which are doing free antigen testing. But we are routinely doing RT-PCR because that is, I think, most reliable test. And it is good for doctors, good for patients, good for our staff.
I think you're doing antigen testing. Antigen.
I said there are 84
Rapid
centers
antigen.
in Delhi which are doing free antigen testing, but in our hospital we are practicing RT-PCR test.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, the other day I had a patient who was planned for cesarean today, and 15 days ago, so we had planned to do her COVID tests closer because 5 days is the COVID acceptability in Bombay. I don't know about your cities.
In Delhi, it is 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
And this lady went into leaking at 36 weeks. So she came and we had to do a cesarean. Of course, I don't do it. Rohan does it. My son does it. And fortunately, they won't PPEs and everything because the patient was not tested. So they took universal care for COVID. And that the patient tested positive. So I think that is where the PPE is to be used, where you're exposed to all blood, body fluids, etc.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes.
I think this is a message which everybody should take, that if your patient is not tested and you're doing deliveries or doing cesareans, I think it's better to use a PPE kit. And she had absolutely no symptoms, no contact, no history at all. Okay, should we advise elective LSCS or as a precautionary measure? My patient is positive.
I don't think so. We should advise elective LSCS just because of COVID. It should be based on obstetrical indication only. Definitely, labor should not be very long. We should not wait for very long. But we should not advise elective LSCS just on the basis of COVID. Yeah.
What about delayed cord clamping?
Like we are still practicing. We are still doing it.
Okay. But anybody has any other view on it? I think delayed cord clamping is recommended by the WHO and it should be done, and we should do it. Okay. And disposable of the PPE, and see, we are all telling that our staff has to wear masks, has to wear face shields and all that. Have you taught them how to take them off, how to take care? Because after using it, and if they touch the front, I think it's really stupid. So have you, how have you taken this care of educating your staff?
Yes, wearing and removing PPE. There are standard guidelines, like for wearing, first we should wear gloves, followed by goggles and mask, and then our face shield, and at last gloves. And when we remove our PPE, first we should remove our gloves because we cannot touch any body part, anything with soiled gloves. Then we have to remove our face shield, followed by our goggles and mask, and at last gown. And that should be rolled inside out so that contaminated area is doesn't come in contact with other things.
What about breastfeeding? Do you advise breastfeeding if the mother is positive?
We are advising breastfeeding, but she has to take due precautions, like she should wear masks, she should sanitize her hands, and she should keep her baby at distance, and she should keep her baby close only when she is breastfeeding. If she can afford, she can use express breast milk. That is a very good option.
Okay. My last question, which is very, very important. What have all of y'all, see, for 2-3 months, we had zero income. Okay. We are coming to how we have sustained. You know, those who are doing deliveries and all, yeah, their income is flowing. But pure IVF guys, I mean, zero. I think my last case was on 15 March and 28th March. I had finished everything. There was zero income from April, May, June. What have you all done? How have you all, taken care of this? One by one, each one of you all can talk and let the people know how we manage the finances and how people can actually utilize those thought processes to manage the finances. Come on, Jayesh, the Guju.
Actually, we have a problem. As we know that from March, I think so. From March end, there is a declaration of that everything that now going to be stopped. But
Yeah.
as you know that everybody, those who are doing a practice, they started some cycle, so it will continue up to April 10. April 10, I think so. Those who are doing only IVF,
No,
there's
whatever. Forget
stimulations and
it.
everything.
Whenever.
So,
What have you
so
done?
up to April 10, what happened that from March I stopped my lot of payments to the other vendors, right?
Ah.
So I said something. I said my accountant, okay, you stop payment of 60 lakh rupees immediately,
Yes.
right? So that I saved something like that, and something I saved from my side. So I make some budget for
But
3 months.
are you paying your staff full money?
No, that see, I'm totally saying transparently that the staff, those who are having less than 20,000 salary, we paid them during these all situations full money.
Right.
Now the people, those who are having a higher salary, we have
Yeah.
a layoff, something like that. We can say cut salary. Some I have a more gynec assistant doctor, so I literally says them I cannot go ahead with this much 4 or 5 assistant doctors. So that's why we can go ahead with the 2. And then we gradually started with the 50% salary, 60% salary. That's what we are doing. And then we come to know to all the people that see whatever the collection of the IVF will be there according to that. At present, if it is 60% working is there, okay, fine, we will give you the whatever your amount, and 60, 60, 70%. When we cross 75% more, we'll give full salary. That is what we decided at
I
present.
think that's a good idea. That's a good way of doing it. Anybody else, anything else to add to it? You know, the whole
No,
problem is,
actually,
yeah, Kuldeep?
no, actually, the problem is as far as the cutting the salary of the your regular staff, it is very, very difficult. So you have to devise your own wage. How they can compensate
But there
you?
is no
Yeah,
choice, no,
yeah.
Kuldeep.
There is
You
no,
have
yeah.
to do it.
So that's why maybe for 2 months, 3 months it is
You
okay.
can
But
do
if it
it.
is going, yeah.
But that's the
So if it is
problem.
going for too long, then you have to devise some means. Even the higher staff, they are creating a lot of like resentment, and you have to keep them with you. You
Yeah,
cannot
I've
just
had
say,
one or two
yeah,
staff who
Especially,
have
madam,
resigned.
I,
Who have
I can
resigned.
I can say especially embryologist, if you have a 2, 3 embryologists and you are paying something 10 lakh rupees of salary of embryology, you need to cut it out. That
Yeah,
is what we are doing at
yeah,
present. So we
yes,
already
yes,
have a
yeah.
meeting with
You
the,
require, yes.
yeah.
we have to have a meeting with them
So,
that, okay, we
okay,
can
I
go ahead.
understand this. Now, look at the other side also. So, these are people who are earning money and all that. So, our patients are also like that. I think they are facing that problem amongst their employers also. So, is it going to affect? That was my question. Will COVID-19 have a long term impact on the IVF sector? One line each one of you all can say.
Yes, I think there will be an impact. We are already seeing the impact because whatever patients are coming, they are before you tell them, they start saying that I don't have money, but I want to go ahead. So, and that is with everyone. So I think you need to redesign your program. You have to have lot of cost saving measures so you can sustain, you can provide the services to your needy patients. So I think there is a need of changing so many things because you can't change the situation of corona. So better you change your practices, your services, and your protocols.
Yeah.
So I think we need to work on that.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, Kaushal?
Okay. Yeah, we have few patients who have even opted to take loans, in the sense they are interest-free loans where they pay in staggered payments to the company that's offering the payment to the clinic.
It can't be
And I've had patients who are using this facility.
My
So there
problem,
are one
I
or two.
feel, these patients take loans and it become negative, then they are cursing you all the time. They're paying that EMI.
But you know what? They are not paying any interest. And what happens is it is given at a subsidized rate to these patients. So the clinic is bearing a part of the cost, a percentage. So we are reducing our fees, so the patients are benefited.
Right.
So some of them have opted for this, but it is going to have a long-term effect. And I'm sure currently patients are sitting at home, they don't have anything. They desperately want a child and they feel they are not doing anything, they want to go ahead. But yes, of course, repeated negatives, or if they have to do a second attempt, it is really going to pinch if they are not getting the salaries that they would have otherwise got.
So I think that is one thing, loan, dropping our prices, what Kuldeep has said, alter your practice. Anything you would like to add?
I think so. I'm just adding something about that. Whatever your previous year business, you have to make a mind that in this 2020-21, you will not reach more around 40 to 60% around the business of IVF. So you need to restrict your all the expenses and whatever the things under the head. Then it will be survivable for IVF. So 40 to, we are just working on that. We cannot reach more than 65% up to 2021. That is what the worst vision. If you go ahead, then let us see. But we can say
good,
by experience.
60% is also damn good.
Yes, that is very good.
40%, we should
I'm putting 40 to 60 a range. If you put it to 40, then it's fine, but not more than 60%.
Okay, so I think let's end on a positive note. I think I've just found this article in Fertility, Sterility, which was very nice actually. That this really said beautifully. Considering the lack of knowledge concerning the risk of infection during in vivo pre-implantation development, a stage during which the potentially protective cumulus cells are shed, it could be argued that actually IVF might represent a safer reproductive strategy than natural conception at this time. So I think that's really something to think about.
Yes.
And given that the success rates of IVF treatment decline at an ever accelerating rate as the age, 0.3% per month. I think we should not wait in older patients. It should be available and you should not delay. And provided that the adequate precautions are taken to ensure the safety of the patients attending fertility clinics as well as the clinical staff, I think it's reasonable to consider the reintroduction of IVF treatments in countries where the response to COVID-19 is currently, stabilized. So I think there are a lot of things which we can learn from the West. Fortunately, because of the lockdown, we know how to treat COVID. It's become, the mortality rate is lower. We're understanding the disease better. So I think it gives us really positive input as to what can happen in the future. So would what my panelists just give one sentence what you would tell the patients at this hour. Can we start with Kaushal? She's first on my screen. Yeah.
Okay. So what I feel is this is a pandemic that is going to be there for long. And we have to learn to live with it. There's, of course, going to be a new normal, but we learn. And I think it is absolutely safe to go ahead with your IVF treatment. You do not need to really stop. As Dr. Nandita said, it's absolutely safe also.
No. We don't have too much evidence, but the evidence is enough. Kuldeep, it's one sentence, please. One sentence.
Only thing what I will like to say here, we need to take all precautions.
Yes.
Whenever we are starting, whenever we are offering our services, we need to consider all the local scenario into the factoring whenever we are offering any services.
Yeah.
It is safe, but we need to be more precautious.
Absolutely.
So there is no harm. We should not do any harm, whether there is a benefit or not, but harm should not be there.
Right.
So I think that we have to keep in mind.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Swati?
The same, madam. It's like with all undue utmost precautions, we need to start do our work and we need to start live with it.
Okay. Jayesh?
Yes, create positivity with all safety precaution, we can say. Always be positive, because if you create negativity, I think so it will be not good for us.
Don't scare your patients.
Yes.
Yes.
Ekta?
Yeah, I will say, like, we have learned to live with HIV, HBsAg. Now we have to learn to live with COVID because it is going to stay. And I will say we should encourage our patient mentally, emotionally. Mental health is also important because it has a lot of mental, emotional impact. And I will say patients who are running out of time, they should go for IVF. Patient who can wait, maybe they can wait if they want to, but it's going to stay. So we have to live with it. We have to do everything. We cannot delay things indefinitely.
So I think that's the final word that we have, that don't get scared, be positive, don't scare your patients because it's not so bad. At the moment, the mortality rate is really, really low. And the other thing is we are COVID-free IVF clinics. I think that would be our tagline which we want to say, that don't be scared. We are taking enough precautions.
Enough precautions.
So I think, thank you very much. It was really wonderful.